I didn't say a word when they shoved that eviction notice into my hands. Instead, I slid a century-old water rights deed across the table. They thought they'd won until the gates opened. 35 homes on my land, gone in a rush of water. Where are you watching from? My name's Jake Morrison, 34 years old, Army Corps of Engineers, and the third generation to walk this land outside Austin, Texas. My grandfather, everyone called him Pops, bought it back in 1955 when barbecue joints outnumbered tech companies by 1,000 to 1. Pops wasn't a man of big words, but he believed in two things: taking care of family and taking care of the land. In 1978, he built a small earth dam with help from the Army Corps. Not for profit, not for show, just to store rainwater for cattle and to share with neighbors during dry spells. That dam became the quiet heartbeat of our farm. Before he passed, Pops told me, "Someday this back 40 acres will matter more than gold." At the time, I thought he meant money. I didn't realize he meant survival. While I was serving 2 tours in Afghanistan, Pops died, and the land slipped into a trust under my sister. She lived in California, didn't understand Texas property law, and hired a management company to keep taxes paid. On paper, everything looked fine. But hidden in those dusty courthouse records was a secret weapon. And soon I was going to need it. When I came home from deployment in August 2023, I expected to see rolling pastures and Pop's dam shimmering in the Texas sun. Instead, I found bulldozers carving scars into the back 40. Concrete trucks rumbled, survey stakes pierced the ground, and 35 homes rose where my cattle once grazed. I marched straight to the construction foreman. He didn't even look guilty. "Sorry, buddy. This is Willowbrook Estates property now. We've got permits." Permits? On my land? That's when Maggie Thornwell rolled up in her golf cart. White BMW parked nearby, tennis visor still on, fake smile plastered across her face. "Your family abandoned this land, honey," she cooed. "We're just putting it to good use for the community." I called the police, but the officer explained the nightmare. The HOA had filed an adverse possession claim while I was overseas. Basically, if no one actively uses land for years and another party improves it, they can sometimes claim ownership. My stomach sank. They had rezoned my land while I was fighting a war. Maggie's husband, a city councilman, had rammed through the changes. But what really made my blood boil was the creek. Pop's dam depended on it, and their construction crews had diverted the flow. That wasn't just theft of land. That was theft of water. The harassment started fast. The HOA set up a so-called safety patrol. 3 middle-aged men in polo shirts who parked at my gate, scribbling license plates like they were CIA. They blasted me with noise complaints when I ran the tractor, cited my farmhouse as unsightly, and even reported my septic tank, despite it passing inspection 6 months earlier. Then came the personal attacks. On the neighborhood app, Maggie posted warnings about an unstable veteran in the area. She never said my name, but everyone knew. Next, her husband Rick weaponized bureaucracy. Within a week, the fire marshal, health inspector, building department, and animal control all showed up together. 4 agencies in one day. Each found minor violations that required immediate attention. Thousands in supposed repairs. And the cruelest blow? Rick pushed veteran services to do a wellness check. A social worker showed up at my farmhouse while Maggie smirked from her golf cart, watching like a prison guard. It was textbook intimidation. Death by paperwork. But here's the thing. I'd seen this before in war zones. Overwhelm the target until they give up. They thought they'd buried me in red tape. What they didn't know was that I had a shovel. I headed for the courthouse. Years in Afghanistan taught me that the devil hides in details. And buried in those dusty records, I found Pop's original dam permits, issued in 1978 by the Army Corps of Engineers. That meant federal jurisdiction. And federal jurisdiction trumps any HOA board with golf carts and clipboards. Then came the jackpot, a 1923 deed. My great-grandfather had bought senior water rights to the entire creek. Older than the county, older than the subdivision, older than every McMansion Maggie had thrown up. This wasn't just property theft. It was water theft, And water law is ironclad in Texas. I started documenting everything. Trail cameras along the creek, time-stamped photos of diversions, flow meters measuring the stolen gallons. That's when I called my old buddy Tony Riggs, now working at the EPA. His voice was steady. Jake, if they're diverting a natural waterway without permits, that's a Clean Water Act violation. Fines start at 50 grand a day. The metallic taste of adrenaline filled my mouth. They wanted a war of paperwork. I was preparing a war of evidence. And the moment rain hit that dam again, I knew exactly what I'd do. I wasn't fighting alone anymore. Mrs. Chun, my elderly neighbor, told me her family garden had dried up since the diversion. Miguel Santos, whose family farm had thrived for generations, showed me cracked soil where crops once grew. Together, we formed a coalition. Then I met Amanda Cross, an environmental lawyer with fire in her eyes and a knack for tearing apart crooked developers. She worked pro bono for cases exactly like this. When I handed her Pop's dam covenant and the water rights deed, she smiled. Jake, they picked the wrong veteran to mess with. We discovered even more. Maggie's HOA had lied to insurance companies, claiming no flood risk existed. They'd falsified wetlands reports. Worse, their creek diversion had killed protected wildlife. That alone was enough to trigger federal prosecution. Meanwhile, I inspected Pop's dam. To my shock, the emergency spillway gates, silent for 40 years, still worked. They'd been designed for controlled flooding, exactly like this. So I made a plan, detailed military style. Flow rates, safety zones, witness lists. Federal inspectors would be invited. Local farmers would be present. Every move documented. The goal wasn't destruction. It was restoration. And when the storm clouds rolled in, I knew the moment had come. The HOA staged their spectacle first. 20 concerned families lined my fence, kids in tow, holding signs, "Protect our children." Maggie's voice trembled for the cameras. This unstable veteran is weaponizing water. But across the road, my allies gathered. Farmers, neighbors, environmental groups. They held photos of the creek in its natural state before the theft. Then, at 7:02 a.m., the federal inspectors arrived. I stood at the spillway, Pop's journal in my hand. The storm clouds cracked above us. And with one pull of the lever, the gates groaned open. Water surged, not a violent flood, but a steady, controlled flow back into the creek bed, exactly where it belonged. Miguel knelt, cupping the water in his weathered hands. "This fed my grandfather's farm for 60 years. He whispered, tears cutting lines in the dust on his cheeks. The homes Maggie had built, dry as ever, not one flooded. Her scream echoed across the valley. "He's destroying us." But the cameras told the truth. The water wasn't destroying anything. It was restoring everything. The news flipped overnight. Yesterday's unstable veteran became today's hero who defended his land. Farmers praised the restored water. Environmental groups hailed the dam as a model for ecosystem recovery. In court, Amanda shredded their case. Federal agents presented evidence of insurance fraud, zoning corruption, and water theft. Rick, under oath, admitted to pushing zoning changes for his own construction company. Maggie's past HOA scandals in Houston resurfaced like skeletons from the deep. The verdict was brutal. The HOA dissolved, Rick resigned in disgrace, and Maggie faced millions in fines. Their entire development collapsed under fraud investigations. As for me, my land was secured. The dam recognized as federally protected. The creek flowed free again, feeding farms and gardens just like Pops intended. I stood at the water's edge and realized this was never about revenge. It was about legacy, about a community standing together when greed tried to steal everything. So here's the lesson. Sometimes you flood the valley to save the creek. And sometimes you fight not just with anger, but with law, truth, and water itself. Because water, like justice, always finds its way home.